Thinking about forking over a monthly subscription for a Whoop? As a longtime Fitbit user, I was hesitant to make the switch, but I decided to pit them against each other and see which one works best for my needs. And here's what I found. Okay, so I've worn both the Fitbit Inspire 2 and the Whoop side by side for over 8 months now, and I've had plenty of time to experience each device and the apps to formulate my opinions. Now, some quick background on my usage will set the stage for how I came to my conclusions. I'm in my 40s now, I know, shocker, and not as much of an athlete as I used to be. The younger me spent years doing hardcore endurance races, rucking, hiking, biking, lifting, and lots of other high-intensity programs, but not so much anymore. Now I have kids and run a business, so my workouts are generally shorter and, well, less intense. But I do still play hockey, hike mountains, and spend a lot of time working around the house. So in short, my competitive days are pretty much behind me, but I still try to balance fitness, health, and strength with all of my other priorities. The good news is, for this video, I'm bringing both perspectives to the table, which is important when deciding which device is best for you. So getting into it, we're going to tackle the comparison in sections, starting with wearability, comfort, and convenience. So this is an important one. If you don't wear the device, you will get absolutely zero benefit from it. What's that quote? You don't score 100% of the shots you don't take. So the Fitbit is up first. I always lean towards the smaller Fitbit devices like the Inspire 2 because I don't like big bulky things on my wrist, especially if I'm going to be wearing it while sleeping. The Fitbit is compact, fairly low profile, and I rarely notice it on my wrist. It's pretty durable. I've been using Fitbit devices for a little over 10 years, and I generally need to replace them about every 2 years or so, and it's usually from damage while playing hockey. So from a wearability and comfort perspective, I give the Fitbit a thumbs up. On the convenience front, there are two things that are important to me: battery life and display. Fitbit does really well with both of these. I get at least a week or more out of the Inspire 2 on a single charge, and the configurable display lets me see information that's most important to me. Most of the time, I like to spot check my heart rate when doing workouts, but I also like to keep tabs on my step count as a general guide on how my day is shaping up. Okay, onto the Whoop. From a wearability and comfort perspective, the Whoop also does very well. I would even go as far to say that it's more comfortable than the Fitbit. It has a great soft band, no clasps get stuck on anything, and is very low profile. Unfortunately, it does fall short on the convenience front, with two big drawbacks here: the lack of any type of a display and the frustratingly short battery life. If I want to check my heart rate with the Whoop, I need to open up my phone or sync it to another device, and neither of those are going to happen while I'm playing hockey. On a full charge, I'm lucky to get about 3 days of use from it, which isn't terrible, but after being spoiled by the Fitbit's great battery life, it's definitely noticeable. One feature to note on the Whoop is wireless charging, which allows you to charge with an external battery and attach it to the device while you're wearing it, so you never have to take it off. It does charge fairly quickly, but the big downside to this approach is that, well, it's easy to misplace that battery pack, and if you do, well, don't, because then you're SOL, at least until a replacement comes. All things considered, for this category, I'm gonna give the win to Fitbit. Next up is accuracy and activity detection. Both devices track similar metrics: heart rate variability, resting heart rate, respiratory rate, and skin temperature. The Whoop also tracks oxygen. Well, this Fitbit model does not, but I know there are others that do. Now, from a pure metrics standpoint, both devices are very close in the numbers they report. I have found that my HRV with the Fitbit is always a few points lower than the Whoop, but not by much, and everything always seems to be reasonably in line between the two. Now, during peak performance, I do notice that the Whoop is more accurate and faster to detect changes in my heart rate. So from a pure accuracy and data perspective, I would say the Whoop is superior. The Whoop, however, is terrible at estimating calorie burn, especially on low intensity days. I know my body, and I've been able to dial in my calorie burn over the years. From my observations, the Whoop only reports about 65 to 70% of my actual calorie burn. Now, to put this into perspective, on a day when I burn 3,000 calories, my Whoop tells me I'm only burning 2,000. It's a pretty big gap. The likely reason for this is that Whoop relies on heart rate data for most of its analytics. So if you're doing long stretches of low intensity workouts like walking, then that energy burn won't likely be reflected in the app, at least accurately. The Fitbit is better, but not by much. Instead of underestimating my calorie burn, my Fitbit consistently overestimates it by about 10%. So taking that same 3,000 calories, my Fitbit will report 3,300 calories burned, which can be dangerous for people trying to lose weight if you're taking those numbers at face value. At the end of the day, my recommendation is to completely disregard Whoop's calorie calculation and be very cautious with Fitbits. In terms of activity detection, both devices do a decent job. The Whoop is better at accurately identifying what I am doing, like biking or playing hockey, and it also makes activities a more meaningful part of the app experience. I tend to look back at things like hockey games to see how hard I'm pushing myself with the Whoop, but almost never look at them in Fitbit's app. Fitbit will detect my activities, but they seem like an afterthought in the app experience, so I never really paid attention to them, and to be honest, I still don't. The one downside to the Whoop here is that, as I alluded to earlier, it's generally poor at detecting and scoring low-intensity activities like weightlifting and walking. At the end of the day, the win here goes to Whoop. I'm more confident in the data, and aside from calories, the activity information is a bit more robust and consumable. The last category for the day is the app and extras. The Fitbit app is clean, intuitive, easy to use, and customizable. It includes additional features such as a food diary, which I don't use because I prefer a different app for that, but the option is there. You can also include multiple devices to commingle data. So probably the best example of this is the Fitbit Aria scale, which tracks weight and body fat, pulling that data into your dashboard and even updating the formulas used to calculate calorie burn based on your most recent weigh-in. It also includes features like stress management and a readiness score, which I don't really care for. And while the Fitbit does track HRV and other health metrics, they're buried in a tile and clearly an afterthought. Also, keep in mind that some of these features do rely on a premium subscription, which does cost extra. The Whoop, on the other hand, is only available by subscription, so be prepared to pay that monthly fee. The app is a little confusing at first. There are a lot of screens, and subscreens, and graphs, and charts, which can be overwhelming until you get the hang of it. But the Whoop excels at providing detailed performance data, and if you're looking to fine-tune your workouts and recovery, then it's a far superior option when compared to the Fitbit. The Whoop app also places heavy emphasis on sleep and recovery, which can be easy to ignore with the Fitbit app. At the end of the day, I'm going to call this a tie. Each app really has its own strengths and weaknesses, and which is better for you will really boil down to what you want out of it. Okay, conclusion time. So after 8 months of wearing both of these, what's my final verdict? Well, it's not as simple as declaring a clear winner. There are elements of each device I like and others that I don't. It really is going to depend on what you're looking to get out of your activity tracker. So if you're a regular person, maybe trying to increase your activity level or lose a little bit of weight, then the Fitbit step counting and calorie burn is likely going to benefit you more, and the easy to use app is probably more than enough for your needs. If you're an athlete, however, and trying to push your body and maximize performance gains, then Whoop's approach to gauging body strain and subsequent focus on recovery is definitely going to serve you better. For me, I found myself relying on the Fitbit to gauge my daily exertion and calorie burn, and I do rely on the Whoop to understand my recovery and prioritize rest. And I do have to admit that since I've picked up the Whoop, I've made better decisions when it comes to prioritizing sleep and avoiding things like alcohol after seeing how it negatively impacts my recovery. That being said, I'm no longer a competitive athlete, so the Whoop really is overkill for my needs, and I'll likely stick with the Fitbit going forward. I did pay for a 2-year subscription with my Whoop, so I will continue to wear both devices and report back with a longer-term review. So, well, that does it for today. I want to thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, well, you know what to do.